Wow, what's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's feeling good. Hope everybody's doing well. Guys, we are back with an update to a story. Wasn't expecting this one so quickly. So, she has a bone to pick with us, guys. She has a bone to pick. Ooh. So, if you remember yesterday's story, one of yesterday's stories, the story about the wife cheating on her husband with a football coach, her son's football coach, and the husband finding out, and then the son wasn't even his. He thought that was his son. He got a paternity test. He divorced her. All this stuff. She's back. She's back, and she's responding to me. She's responding. She's responding to everybody, and she wants everybody to know that she's not a monster. She's not a bad person. And we got her all wrong. And she has some things she wants to tell us. So, guys, if you don't know that story, I'll play it first if you didn't listen to it. But if you know exactly what I'm talking about, go down to the description, click update. It'll take you straight to the latest email. Let's get into it. You're actually sorry for what you did or what, but you are low down and dirty. You are disgusting. This man was going to work every day busting his tail only for you to start sleeping with your son's coach. I say your sons, and guys, you'll see why I said that. Let's get into it. I cheated with my son's football coach, then my husband's best friend. Now I regret everything. The worst mistake of my life. From Amy. Hi, true story. My name is Amy, and I want to start this by saying, I know this story is going to make me sound like the worst person alive. I've gone back and forth in my mind about whether I should even send this in. But after watching so many of your videos and hearing how raw and honest these stories are, I figured, what do I have to lose anymore? My family is already broken. My son is caught in the middle of a mess I created, and the man who once looked at me like I was the center of his universe won't even make eye contact with me anymore. So here it goes. I'm 35 years old now. My ex-husband Mitchell and I met when I was 24, and he was 26. He was calm, collected, kind. The kind of man who didn't say much in public but paid attention to everything. He listened deeply, not just to respond, but to understand. I think that's what made me fall for him so hard. I was used to guys who talked a lot but did very little. Mitchell was the opposite. He showed up, always, quietly, consistently, with that calm strength that made you feel safe. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. I remember I was wearing this terrible red dress I regretted the moment I walked into the room, but Mitchell complimented me on it anyway. That color looks good on you, he said, and I smiled like a teenager. I wasn't used to compliments without strings attached. He was different. We dated for about a year and a half before I found out I was pregnant. At the time, we weren't living together, but we were spending a lot of time at each other's places. I wish I could say I was the perfect girlfriend, but the truth is, back then, I still had a lot of growing up to do. I wasn't emotionally mature, and I hadn't yet learned to deal with life without blowing things up when I got overwhelmed. About 4 months before I found out I was pregnant, I had a moment of weakness. I slept with someone else. It wasn't an emotional affair. It wasn't planned, and it meant nothing. But that doesn't matter, does it? Because it happened. And when I found out I was pregnant, I remember sitting on the bathroom floor shaking. Not because I was scared of being a mom, I actually welcomed the idea of family, but because I knew, deep down, there was a chance the baby might not be Mitchell's. I remember praying. I remember hoping the timeline would just line up, that it would be Mitchell's, that if I never said anything, everything would be okay. We'd be a family, and we were, at least for a while. Mitchell stepped up like no man I'd ever seen. He moved us into a rental house, worked double shifts, built a crib with his bare hands, and rubbed my back every night when I was too swollen to sleep. He loved our son, and yes, I'm calling him our son, because even if the biology doesn't match, Mitchell was and still is the only father my boy has ever known. He cut the cord. He stayed up nights. He read bedtime stories, kissed boo-boos, showed up to birthday parties. He was a dad in every sense of the word. Fast forward 6 years. Our son Jason started playing pee-wee football. It was honestly one of the proudest moments of Mitchell's life. Even though he couldn't always be at practice because of work, he made sure he was there for the games. Always. He'd yell from the sidelines with that same calm excitement. "Let's go, Jay." That's when I met Coach Damon. I want to be very honest here, because this is where I know people are going to judge me, and I probably deserve it. Damon was charismatic, funny, and way too flirtatious. At first, I thought it was harmless, just sideline banter. A wink here, a joke there, but it grew. He started messaging me privately, told me I looked good, asked how I was doing, complimented my game day jeans. I should have shut it down. I know I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I started entertaining it. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I felt neglected with Mitchell working so much. Maybe I just wanted to feel noticed. I don't know. There's no excuse that can justify it. But the truth is, we started seeing each other behind Mitchell's back. At first, it was just texting and flirting, but it escalated quickly. I hate admitting this, but there were times when I dropped Jason off early and stayed behind for volunteer work at the field house. That's when it started. Secret meetups, parking lot conversations that turned into physical encounters. It was reckless, selfish, and destructive. I thought we were being discreet, but I guess Damon had a bigger mouth, and then I realized. He bragged to one of the dads about what we were doing. That dad told his wife, and within a week, the entire sideline knew. Except for Mitchell. Then one Saturday, Jason came home early from a practice carpool. I was washing dishes when I heard the door slam. He walked in crying, red-faced, couldn't even speak at first. When I finally got him to calm down, he said through tears, "Why are they saying you're a cheater, Mom?" It felt like someone punched me in the stomach. I dropped the dish and just froze. I had no words. He told me the boys were teasing him, saying, "Your mom's the team mom for everyone, and Coach is your real dad, not Mr. Mitchell." I wanted to crawl into a hole. I told him to ignore them, that people lie when they're jealous, but kids are relentless. And worse, Jason started asking questions I wasn't prepared to answer. Mitchell got home from work that night and saw Jason sulking. He started asking questions. I could see it in his eyes. He knew something was off. He asked him what happened, and when Jason started repeating what the boys said, Mitchell looked at me and said, "Is there something you want to tell me?" I lost it. "Don't you dare question our son like that," I screamed. I was trying to redirect the focus, but Mitchell wasn't stupid. That night, he waited until I was in the shower and grabbed my phone. I came out dripping wet and saw him sitting at the edge of the bed reading my messages with Damon. He looked at me like he didn't even know who I was. The look of betrayal, I'll never forget it. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He just said, "I'm done," and left the house. I didn't hear from him for weeks. No calls, no texts, just silence. Then one afternoon, I was served divorce papers, and attached to them was a document I'll never forget. Paternity results. He wasn't Jason's father. My heart dropped. I felt sick. I ran to the bathroom and vomited. I had no idea he even suspected. But apparently, that same day he found the messages, he picked Jason up from school, took him out for lunch and games, and quietly took him to get swabbed at a testing center. Jason later admitted it to me after I confronted him, and he cried, saying he didn't know what it meant. That Dad told him it was just a science test. I was furious. I felt violated, betrayed, even though I was the one who betrayed everyone. I wanted to get Mitchell in trouble somehow. I really did. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there was nothing I could do. He had every right. He was hurt, confused, broken, and he handled it better than I ever could have. The divorce hearings were brutal. Damon tried to play the victim and denied everything until the messages were presented. Then he backtracked and disappeared. He left the team shortly after and hasn't reached out since. He ghosted me completely. Mitchell didn't fight for custody. He didn't try to take Jason away. He simply said, "I'm not his father biologically, but I'll always be in his life if he wants me to be. Just not through you." That cut deep. Since then, it's been hard, really hard. I lost a lot of friends. The football parents won't even look at me. I had to take Jason out of that school because the teasing wouldn't stop. I had to move back in with my sister temporarily, and even she's cold with me now. My own family barely talks to me. Jason's struggling emotionally. He asks about Mitchell often, and I tell him the truth, that his dad loves him, but we're not together because of mistakes I made. He still sees Mitchell sometimes, usually once or twice a month, and it warms my heart and breaks it all at once, because I see how much love still exists between them, and I know I shattered something that can never be fully repaired. I regret everything. Not just the affair, but the lies, the secrets, the cowardice. I should have been honest from the start. I should have told Mitchell about the possibility of Jason not being his. I should have shut down Damon the moment he crossed the line. But I didn't. And now, here I am, a broken woman writing into a YouTube channel because I have no one else to talk to. No one else who wants to hear it. If you read this on your channel, I just want people to know cheating isn't worth it. No attention, no thrill, no compliment is worth destroying the foundation of the only real love I ever had. I'm not looking for sympathy. I just wanted to speak my truth. Thanks for listening. Please add this to my original email. I left out something major from Amy. Hi again, true story. This is Amy, the woman who wrote in about the affair with her son's football coach and how it blew up my marriage with Mitchell. I know you probably get tons of emails every day, and I appreciate you even taking the time to read the one I sent. But after I hit send, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned all night, not because I was second guessing my story, but because I left something out. Actually, I left out something big. And I think if you're going to share my story, if you even decide to, then it wouldn't be fair to leave this part out. The truth is, I did more damage than what I already admitted in my first email. I don't know if it's guilt, shame, or just needing to be completely honest for once in my life, but there's more. And I need to get it off my chest. I didn't just cheat on Mitchell with our son's football coach. I also slept with his best friend. And the worst part, since our divorce, I've been seeing him again. I don't know where to begin because I know this sounds beyond repair. I sound like a monster. I sound like someone who doesn't deserve forgiveness. And maybe I don't. But I want to explain. Not to justify what I did, but because I think someone out there needs to hear the full truth. Maybe another woman who's heading down the same road I went down. Maybe another man who's getting played and needs to see the signs. Or maybe someone just trying to make sense of their own chaos. Either way, I owe you the full story if you decide to share it. So here's the rest. Mitchell's best friend's name is Cameron. They grew up together. Childhood best friends since elementary school. He was the best man at our wedding. He gave the speech that made everyone cry. He was that close to us. Cameron was always around. Birthdays, holidays, backyard BBQs. He was like family. Jason called him Uncle Cam, even though we weren't blood related. And even though Cameron had his own messy dating life, he was good with kids. Funny, quick-witted, always cracking jokes. There were moments, little glances, subtle things, where I sensed there might be something unspoken between us. But I always brushed it off. Maybe I liked the attention. Maybe it gave me a rush I shouldn't have wanted, But at the time, I kept telling myself, it's harmless. He's just flirtatious with everyone. It wasn't harmless. One night, about a year and a half before everything with the coach came out, Mitchell was out of town for work. Cameron came by to help me move some furniture. Mitchell had asked him to, and afterward, we had a few drinks in the kitchen. Jason was asleep upstairs. It was late, and one minute we were laughing about some childhood story, and the next, I kissed him. Or maybe he kissed me. I honestly don't remember who made the first move anymore. But it happened, and it didn't stop there. It wasn't a one-time thing. It became a pattern. Late-night texts, random visits, secret rendezvous when Mitchell was working overtime or out of town. And again, no excuses. It wasn't Mitchell's fault. He wasn't neglectful or abusive or cruel. He was just trying to provide for us, trying to be the man I claimed I wanted. And I betrayed him in the most personal way imaginable, not just with a stranger, but with the one person he trusted most. When I started sleeping with the football coach later on, I did it partly to escape the guilt I was already carrying. I know that sounds backwards, but it was almost like I convinced myself, well, I already messed up. What difference does it make now? That's the dangerous spiral no one talks about. When you mess up once, and instead of stopping and facing it, you dig deeper, hoping that more sin will cover the shame of the last one. But it never does. It just buries you alive. Cameron and I stopped seeing each other right after Mitchell found out about the coach. I cut all ties, blocked him, told him I never wanted to see him again. He tried calling a few times, left me a couple voicemails, but eventually gave up. I tried to start fresh. I focused on Jason. I tried to get therapy, even though I couldn't afford it for long, and I moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment not far from Mitchell's place. I thought that if I could just rebuild slowly, maybe someday I'd have peace. But then, one night, a few months ago, I saw Cameron again. It was at a grocery store, of all places. Random. We were both in line at the self-checkout. He looked different. Thinner, scruffier, like life had been hitting him hard too. He just looked at me and said, "Hey." I didn't know what to say. We walked outside, talked in the parking lot for almost an hour. He apologized. I apologized. He said he still thought about me. I told him I didn't want to go backward, but I did. A few days later, he texted me. I ignored it. Then he texted again. And before I knew it, we were back in it, sneaking around again. Except this time, it wasn't behind Mitchell's back. We weren't even married anymore, but it still felt wrong. Because this man destroyed Mitchell, just like I did. And here I was, letting him back in. The worst part is, Jason has no idea. He hasn't seen Cameron since the divorce. He doesn't ask about him. He still sees Mitchell on occasion and loves him deeply. And I've tried my best to protect that bond. I never say a bad word about Mitchell around Jason. I never will. But now, with me secretly seeing Cameron again, I feel like I'm tearing down whatever small bit of healing Jason has left. Cameron wants more. He talks about being official, about being in Jason's life again, about going public. And I don't know what's wrong with me, because part of me wants to feel wanted again. But every time I look at my son, every time I remember the look on Mitchell's face the night he discovered the truth, I just feel sick. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I wrote that first email to come clean about the affair with the coach, but deep down, I knew that wasn't the full truth. That was the most public part of the betrayal, the one that blew everything up. But the betrayal with Cameron, that was the personal one, the deeper wound, the one that truly fractured my ex-husband in ways I don't think he'll ever admit out loud. Mitchell and Cameron haven't spoken since, obviously. That friendship is gone, a 20-plus year bond obliterated by selfishness and silence. And I feel responsible for every piece of it. I want to be better. I want to stop making excuses. But it's hard to break a cycle when shame feels like your only identity. Some nights I lie in bed and wonder what my life could have been if I had just been honest. If I had told Mitchell the truth about Jason's paternity before he was born. If I had never crossed that line with Cameron. If I had never even entertained Coach Damon's messages. But what ifs don't change reality. They don't fix the wreckage. So now I'm just trying to figure out who I am without all the lies. I wrote this follow-up because I don't want to keep pretending. I don't want people to hear half a story and think that was the extent of my mistakes. I want people to know the full truth, even if it makes me look worse. Especially if it makes me look worse. Because I've realized something recently. Shame grows in the shadows, but when you drag it into the light, it loses some of its power. So, true story, if you think my story is still worth sharing, I'd be grateful if you could add this to my original email. Stitch it together. Let people hear all of it. The affair with the coach, the broken marriage, the paternity test, the divorce, and now the continued spiral with Mitchell's best friend. If you choose not to share it, I understand. Some things are just too messy, too ugly, too disappointing. But if you do, please let your audience know that I'm not sharing this for sympathy. I'm sharing this because someone out there might be standing on the same cliff I stood on, ready to jump into a decision that will destroy their whole world. And if my story can stop even one person from stepping over that edge, then maybe some good can come from all this pain. Thank you for listening again. My final update. A response to the comments. Hi again. True story. First, thank you for reading my emails and for sharing my story. I know it was one of the most difficult stories you've probably read. Emotionally messy, complicated, and not exactly the kind that earned someone a redemption arc. I never expected sympathy, and I certainly didn't expect a warm embrace from strangers on the internet. But I still wanted to write in one last time, not to beg for understanding, not to plead for forgiveness, but to respond to some of the comments. Because I read them, every single one. I don't know what I expected, really. When you air out your darkest moments, the internet doesn't exactly hand you a blanket and say, it's okay. And that's fine. I didn't come to be coddled. I came to be honest, but some of the comments really made me think. Not because they hurt, but because they showed me just how misunderstood I still am. And maybe how misunderstood people like me are in general. Let me respond to a few that stood out. Comment 1. Sheesh, I feel bad for Mitchell and the son. This woman is a monster. I get it. You hear what I did? And monster seems like the easiest label to slap on me. It's black and white. Cheating wife, unfaithful partner, liar, homewrecker. Add in the fact that I had an affair with the football coach and then later slept with my ex-husband's best friend. I mean, on paper, yeah, I look like a real-life villain. But can I ask you something? Do monsters feel guilt? Do they cry themselves to sleep at night wishing they could take back every lie, every decision that broke someone they loved? Do monsters sit in silence while their son asks questions they don't know how to answer? Not because they're hiding, but because they're trying to protect a little boy's heart. I am not a monster. I'm a woman who made devastating mistakes. Yes, mistakes, plural. I'm not denying that. I own it. I walked into those decisions with both eyes open, but I also carry the consequences of them every single day. I lost my marriage. I lost friendships. I lost a piece of myself I don't think I'll ever get back. If being flawed makes me a monster, then maybe we're all monsters in disguise. Just some of us get exposed while others keep their secrets buried better. Comment 2. Sounds like a psychopath that's trying to convince herself that she has real empathy and remorse. This one actually made me laugh, not because it's funny, but because if you could see the inside of my mind, the sleepless nights, the therapy sessions I started and couldn't afford to finish, the number of times I've written letters to Mitchell I never sent, you'd realize there's more empathy and remorse in me than I ever knew was possible. You think psychopaths reflect? You think they question themselves every single time they wake up and see the empty space on the other side of the bed where a good man used to sleep? Let me tell you what real remorse looks like. It's seeing your child cry after getting teased at school because of something you did. It's knowing that your silence destroyed a man who trusted you with his life. It's having to walk through your neighborhood knowing people whisper about you. It's raising your son alone and praying every day that he never feels the kind of emotional confusion that you caused. I don't expect anyone to look at me and say, "She's changed." That's not how healing works. It's slow, it's private. It's filled with days where you move forward and then crumble right back into a shame spiral. But I do feel remorse. I feel it deeply. And if you can't see that in my words, then maybe you just don't want to. Comment 3. This woman is damaged beyond all repairs. This one? This one stung a bit, not because it might be true, but because it's such a final statement. Like there's no hope, no chance of rebuilding. Like I'm a broken car on the side of the road, not even worth towing, just scrap metal. And I guess that's what really gets to me about all of this. Everyone talks about accountability. Take responsibility, own your actions. And I have. I wrote in. I laid everything out. I told the whole truth, not the Instagram version, not the polished therapy session version, but the gut-wrenching, awkward, raw version. And still, the response from some of you was, "You're damaged, hopeless, beyond saving." Is that really how we treat people who fall short? I'm not saying I deserve praise. God, no. But is there really nothing left of me that's redeemable? Because I still wake up every day and take care of my son. I still show up at every school meeting. I still cook dinner, do laundry, help with homework. I still volunteer at his after-school events, even when I know the other moms whisper behind my back. I'm trying. That might not be enough for you, and that's okay, but it's not nothing, and it sure as hell doesn't mean I'm damaged beyond all repairs. To everyone who mentioned my son, there were quite a few comments saying things like, "Her poor son, that kid is going to grow up damaged," or "She's ruining his life." Let me speak directly to that. You have no idea how fiercely I love my child. None. Jason is the reason I even had the courage to write in the first place. He's the reason I stopped running from the truth. Every single choice I make now, I make with him in mind. Yes, I made mistakes that affected him, but don't you dare assume that he's going to grow up broken just because his mom was once lost. My son is kind, he's smart, he's emotionally aware, he's in therapy, real therapy with a real child counselor, and he's learning how to process his feelings in a way I never learned at his age. He's going to be fine. No, he's going to be amazing, because I'm raising him to be honest, to own his truth, to talk about what hurts, and to never run away from problems like a coward. I will not let him grow up thinking men have to bottle things up and walk away the moment life gets hard. He will learn how to stay and work through things, how to face uncomfortable emotions, and how to treat people with grace and accountability. So to the people who wrote him off, don't. He's stronger than you think, and so am I. The true story. You have every right to feel how you feel about me. I know my story probably stirred up a lot, maybe even some personal stuff for you or someone you care about. You've heard hundreds, maybe thousands of stories, and maybe mine was one of the ugliest. But I'm not ashamed of what I shared, because it was real. Real life isn't always clean. It's not always inspirational. Sometimes it's people falling flat on their faces and getting dragged through the mud they created. Sometimes it's people who don't get to wrap their stories up with a pretty bow. But even in that mess, there's something worth sharing. Something that might just snap someone else out of their own spiral. That's why I wrote in. That's why I'm writing this. What my life looks like now. For anyone who's curious, no, I'm not with Cameron anymore. That ended about a month after I sent my second email. I realized it wasn't love. It was loneliness, familiarity, guilt disguised as affection. I walked away from that relationship for good, and I haven't looked back. I started attending church again, not because I'm trying to clean up my image, but because I needed to believe in something bigger than myself. I don't go to be seen. I go to sit in the back and listen, and sometimes cry. I started journaling. Writing helps, even if no one reads it. Even if most days it's just a page that says, "You're still here. You can still try again tomorrow." I got a part time job at a bookstore. It doesn't pay much, but I love it. It's quiet. It gives me space to think. And Jason comes in sometimes after school to do his homework in the little reading corner. Watching him there, safe, focused, peaceful, reminds me that not everything is lost. I still miss Mitchell, not because I want to get back together, even though some days I do, but because I miss the version of myself I was when I was with him, before all the lies, before I broke everything. He hasn't spoken to me beyond what's necessary for co-parenting, and that's fine. I don't expect him to. I'm just grateful he still loves Jason and shows up for him. That, in itself, is a gift I don't take for granted. Final thoughts. I'm not here to defend myself. Not really. I already did the damage. But I do want people to understand that I'm not some heartless creature walking around without consequences. I've paid in tears, in silence, in lost relationships, in guilt that doesn't go away, no matter how many times I tell myself to move on. But I'm still here. And I still believe people can change. I still believe in growth. And I still believe that even the worst chapters of our lives can be used to help someone else avoid writing the same one. So thank you, even to the commenters who called me names and judged me harshly. You have every right to feel how you feel, but just know your words didn't destroy me. They didn't teach me a lesson. Life already did that. If anything, your comments made me want to be even better. Not to prove you wrong, but to prove to myself that I'm more than the worst things I've done. This will be my final update. I don't want to keep dragging my story out for attention. That was never the point. But I do hope that someone, somewhere, hears this and chooses honesty before destruction, vulnerability before betrayal, truth before comfort. Thanks again for reading. And thanks, True Story, for giving people like me a place to be honest, even if it's ugly. Sincerely, Amy.